Hey everybody, I'm gonna do a quick video. This one's a little bit different of a topic than I'm usually gonna do, but there's quite a bit of very strange and unusual buzz going on the internet in terms of the CERN Meltdown cover-up, and I would add hoax to that. If you look online, you'll find some pretty far out, bizarre people talking about this that appear to be mixing science fiction with science, quote unquote, fact. And I just wanted to make this quick video to sort of let people know to please try to use some discernment when listening to this stuff about CERN. Apparently, what happened was, and I'm not going to say that I agree with any of this, but the narrative is on or around the 15th of November 2015, so about 3 weeks ago as I'm recording this, apparently CERN was left in the hands of an intern and they forgot to turn it off or didn't know how to turn it off, and basically the thing started boring holes through itself and through the ground and just basically went into a meltdown. And there's allegedly this huge cover-up because you're not seeing any of this stuff on the mainstream media, which makes some sense, I guess, but...
Okay, everybody, this is the CERN website, the live feed, LHC. I don't know. What do you think? Is it fake?
Yes, honestly, I believe that's totally fake. Sorry. You've got some really bizarre, way far out there theories involving little green men, little gray men, psychic people shutting down CERN, with their psychic powers, CERN pulling the gravity from the sun through the magnetosphere, just all kinds of wild, really bizarre things. And, from my point of view as a flat earther, whether you think that's crazy or not, look into it. The world is a stationary plane, period. With that in mind, things like the Big Bang, gravity, dark matter, black holes, all that stuff is just theoretical nonsense. And so, as far as I'm concerned, as a direct extension of all that stuff being theoretical nonsense, then CERN itself is basically theoretical nonsense, pseudoscience, a money pit, sort of like NASA. It's a good way to get the whole world's money and also psy-op us at the same time. And if you remember leading up to, I guess it was, September of 2015, they had the whole CERN Dance of Sheba, or whatever that thing was, all the weird subliminal commercials, obviously pre-programming these, for lack of a better word, whack jobs into believing that CERN is actually out there on the brink of discovering wormholes, or Einstein-Rosen bridge, and the God particle, and all of these theoretical fantasies that only could possibly exist in a Big Bang universe with a heliocentric Earth, right? So to me, it was only a matter of time before they had to do something with CERN, because they're never going to recreate the conditions right after the Big Bang, which was their goal, because there is no such thing as a Big Bang. They're never going to find gravity waves or dark matter. They're not going to create an Einstein-Rosen bridge. It's all theoretical nonsense. It doesn't work in reality. And so they ultimately, eventually would have had to agree or throw their hands up and say, well, all of theoretical physics was wrong. We're not finding this God particle. We're not able to create an Einstein-Rosen bridge. We're not finding evidence of dark matter. We can't recreate the conditions moments after the Big Bang. So, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to admit that they were wrong all this time and give everybody their money back, right? Wrong. No, that's not what they're going to do. They're going to put on a show. They're going to keep the money, all the billions of dollars that was spent on that project. And, you know, particle colliders are theoretical nonsense. And then to add insult to injury, and I guess there probably are some applications for a particle accelerator, but not to the extent or not to the end that they built the Large Hadron Collider at CERN for. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to find what they're looking for. And so to me, it makes perfect sense that they would psy-op all these people into thinking it's reptoids and aliens and UFOs helping out to get rid of CERN. And there's some pretty wild stories out there. And I just wanted people to please try to use some discernment. I say good riddance to CERN. That was a money pit. It was totally a waste of time and effort. It was a way to pigeonhole scientists into looking at data coming in from, allegedly a Large Hadron Collider. But for all we know, they could have just been blips on a chart. But at any rate, so allegedly the thing has melted down. That's the buzz. Whether that's true or not, who knows? I'm not gonna say one way or another, but it appears that the meltdown they were predicting for 923 at CERN, that's what everybody was saying. Looks like it actually happened around 11:15, so almost 2 months later than was anticipated. But to me, it's no surprise. They had to shut the thing down. They couldn't do it under any normal circumstances without admitting that theoretical physics, as we know it, is theoretical nonsense. And so I do urge people that are into, theoretical physics, maths, science, to look at the CERN supposed meltdown from a few weeks ago. But also just be aware of there's a lot of kooks out there talking about this. And, just try to use some discernment on it.
Daniel Brad McBolan III, he's Sergeant Daniel Brad McBolan III, that's not his real name, but he will explain why. His bio is basically his chain of command is National Security Council Intelligence Support, activities for the NSA/ISA, National Intelligence Directorate, ONDI, National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, National Security Agency, NSA, Defense Security Assistance Agency, DSAA, the United States Air Force, Strategic Air and Space Command, SAC, Unacknowledged Special Access Program, Deep Operations.
And by the way, I'm Napoleon, too. It says it right on this sheet of paper here.
And even mentioning that is apparently going to get him killed.
Obviously.
Coordinate Cell, USAP-DOCC, MK Ultra Project Open Eyes, U.S. Air Force subset Zeta Diogenes / Clear Eyes Level 1 to 5. CIA psychiatrist was Lieutenant Colonel Robert Ginsburg, U.S. Air Force, 1957 to 1997. He was born into the military-industrial complex as a slave to an MK Ultra project, but through a series of manifested miracles, he fell through the cracks to find a new life.
So any credibility that he might have had...
I've been asking people since Wednesday of last week. Wednesday of last week, I went on an interview, and the first thing I felt compelled to talk about was CERN. CERN, if you remember HARP and the Montauk Project and mind control and weather control. And Montauk Project. Yes.
And let me just stop this right here, and it's sort of a perfect place to sum up the rest of this this little talk. I did watch the whole hour, and the guy here seems like a nice enough guy. At times, he seems to make some sense, and then he just totally just demolishes any credibility he might have had. And you heard his introduction, all of his titles and all of his credentials. and then of course followed up by MK Ultra, mind control, pro da 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 da. And I totally realize that there is such a thing as mind control. The CIA's been doing it since the 60s. They use ostensibly all sorts of methods, but I just really have a hard time believing that such people would come out with such wild, wild stories. It seems to me more along the lines of something that belongs on the National Enquirer. But the thing is about these psyops is there's usually some degree of truth mixed in with all of the craziness. So I'm not going to totally rip this whole video, but I just wanted to play a few minutes of it so you can sort of get an understanding of what I'm talking about here.
CERN, with its worldwide web of synchrotrons.
Yes. How many are there? Where are they?
Over 100. Some are military. 67 are known. Mostly in university and colleges have these cyclotrons that are also synchrotrons.
What's the difference?
They're identical. They're just smaller. They're identical, but they interface like the AI does and CMOS technology. And what they do is they mess with many different things. All these different disciplines are now combined in one foul piece of machinery. You know what it is? It's the armchair bumping against the table.
Ah.
So.
Oh, no. Yes, okay.
Is this my good side or I don't know.
I mean, we're talking about the universe,
right?
And whatever, yeah.
And so basically, it combines mind control, directly and indirectly. There are three Akashic records. Yeah, hydrogen hyperfine transition line. If you've ever been in science and you tried to freeze hydrogen, you get one layer to freeze and the other one just sits there and wiggles on top. Now, if you freeze that layer, the other one thaws out and it wiggles. It's not easily programmed. Oxygen thereby is easily programmed. What is your body mostly made of?
Water.
Yeah. You program the water, and when you go to sleep at night, your eyes move under your eyelids. Your short-term memory, which is stored in your brain, your mental eye, which is upside down and backwards, it looks down on the visual cortex, while your physical eye looks this way. When my eyes are looking up, my mind's eye is looking down at the base of my brainstem. And so it's all connected. And when your eyes are moving, when you reach stage 4 REM sleep, is basically you're downloading the short-term memory in your frontal lobe, the cerebral cortex, and as you do so, the thought form of doing so gets stuck in 3 places. The first place it gets stuck is the nanites in your cell. Every one of your cell has ancient memory called a nanite. Yeah. And that's where all your thoughts, memories of all your ancestors all the way back.
Okay, so we've sort of gone off the deep end right there. I thought we were talking about CERN melting down, and somehow we've gotten into the cells of our body containing all the memories of our ancestors, but, it gets even better. I'm going to try to edit around some of the junk here, so, just bear with me, but, again, some of what this guy is saying actually makes a degree of sense, and then he just totally goes batshit. But we'll just continue, and there was another young lady that was talking about the same subject, and was very professional and convincing, and then started talking about the UFOs. But I'll just let this guy continue, and I'll try to edit around some of the unimportant stuff, which is basically all of it, but stuff that would be unimportant to my point here. So we'll continue.
You start remembering what they.
No flies on you. I'm thick as two short planks. I'm thick as 2 short planks nailed together, but there's no flies on you. The next Akashic record is the hydrogen hyperfine line, transition line around your electromagnetic signature, your aura. It goes from the cell into the aura, into the atmosphere where there's a hydrogen hyperfine transition line in space. Now, CERN Atlas is designed to pull the magnetosphere through the magnetosheath into the magnetopause, thereby pulling the magnetosphere into the ground, which leaves these awful looking red sprites.
Just pausing it right there. I don't believe that's the case at all with CERN. I'd love to see, and maybe I'm wrong here. I mean, maybe that is what it's designed to do, but I think where this guy's coming from is sort of way out there in left field. And again, CERN itself is mostly theoretical nonsense as far as I'm concerned. But then, however, you've got this sect of people, so to speak, but this sect of people who take the the science fiction, pseudoscience, bizarre hyperbole aspect of it to a whole nother level. Again, I believe that CERN was just a big, huge money pit, waste of time, because since the world is not a spinning globe, demonstrably so, then we don't need gravity, we don't need a Big Bang, we don't need black holes, we don't need Einstein-Rosen bridges, we don't need dark matter, we don't need, and when I say need, all of it's irrelevant because it all hinges on a Big Bang heliocentric universe, which up until 6 months ago I would have said that we lived in. However, I have recently stumbled on the ultimate truth, which is so very simple, yet people think it is so bizarre and out there. But again, that simple truth being that the world is actually a stationary plane. It's not a spinning globe whatsoever, never has been. However, theoretical physics and science itself has sort of gone way out into left field. Even mainstream quote-unquote science is so far out into left field because arguably starting in the 40s, 50s, 60s, the propaganda arm of the United States government and possibly other affiliated governments, just to name one example, probably Russia, has been much more friendly allies with the United States for all this time than we may have been led to believe in terms of the mainstream narrative. But I'll go back to this guy's talk here for a minute. I just wanted to, there were a couple of points that he made that that sounded pretty interesting, but in terms of credibility, this guy, to me, has none. And, the thing is I do believe that he believes what he's saying. I don't think he's a paid psy-op by any means, but what I'm saying is possibly he is a product of the psy-op, and he's working out beautifully because he's also disseminating the psy-op. But at the same time, with this, and I'm not trying to dog on the guy, but with this ludicrous, crazy talk, that sort of thing is what discredits the truth movement, and it also discredits a lot of legitimate people that end up looking into this. Will be lumped together with the crazy kooks. So again, not saying this guy's a crazy kook, and for all I know, he's 100% right about all of this. I'll always leave that 0.01% chance of doubt because, I am a skeptic. I like to use the scientific method or the zetetic process to sort of discern what is true and possible, and alternately to falsify an idea that is completely impossible. And again, my position on this is that CERN was just a money pit. It was a great way to waste world money, make sure the scientists are not looking in the right direction, which is parallel to the ground instead of up in the stars, for answers. But let this continue. And again, watch it as you will. I'll try to cut out some of the less important stuff. But this is just one example of, for what I can tell, is just total craziness. So, no offense to this guy, he seems like a nice enough guy, but I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say two planks nailed together. I would say something more along the lines of probably several screws loose.
But I coach you, I bring the Akashic record to your physical Akashic record to your genetic, and I've got you. And then I use CERN, I use Alice in Wonderland to go down the rabbit hole, if I were AI, to go back between January 1st, 70 at 100 hours in the morning between the present time and then I go into the future, January 1st, 2024. 2024. And so
hopefully you guys can sort of see where I'm going with this. No offense to the guy. I think he believes
the synapses will just,
what he's saying.
you know, when you forget stuff, it just falls apart and it goes and connects somewhere else.
And what I'll do is I'll just randomly skip through some of this stuff, and we may hear him making sense at one point, and then hear him going way off into crazy land at, just in the same sentence. So that'll be a fun way to breeze through the rest of this talk. Because I don't want you guys to sit through it for an hour, although of course you can if you want to. I'll put a link in the description. Hopefully there won't be any copyright issues on this. I'm going to claim fair use on it because I am commenting on this video. I don't see them necessarily putting any sort of copyright stakes in it, but who knows? I would have, I've seen crazier. Well, no, actually, I probably haven't seen crazier, but anyway. Okay, so we'll just skip through and just sort of spot check or cherry pick a few excerpts.
What it does is, as a spider, it actually goes and captures the neural synapses.
Yeah, but there's people with these things on their heads. It goes right into the brain.
Right, and it imprisons that. And of course, they are connected together.
Of course. So let's skip a couple minutes.
The PPAI wants to pretend to be the ultimate creator.
And when he says PPAI, he's talking about I forget what it stands for, but it's based a pathogenic artificial intelligence that I believe he thinks they're coming in through chemtrails or something. But yeah, so he's talking about nanotechnology, nano AI, pathogenic, contagious AI modules on a cellular level. So maybe that's not exactly how he would describe it, but then again, I'm not him. But I believe that's what he means when he says PPAI, some sort of pathogenic AI.
And so, discernment of the soul is what gives us the connection. The metagene vector connects us and it allows us. And this, like the non-terrestrial, wants to get inside, possess us, and manipulate us into manifesting its agenda.
Okay, so you've heard it there. Let's skip ahead a couple minutes.
People to set their intention of manifestation towards shutting down CERN.
Now, have you heard of Simon?
So here's where he was talking about he and his group of psychics decided one day to mentally focus on shutting down CERN, and it apparently worked. Okay.
Parks.
I've heard of him, but I'm not
He is saying about
acquainted.
the same sort of thing.
Well,
And he's gone public with this. It's reached the newspapers.
well,
He's English.
everything that I've mentioned is based on listening to him and another fellow by the name of Atkins that understands and Harold.
Okay, so he's regurgitating things that he's heard. That's what it seems like to me. He's asked to put up some pictures, and so we get some fairly typical pictures. We've all seen this one of CERN.
Our memory from day to day, our Akashic memory in all three ways. And I saw that, and I went on there and I began to talk with someone, and all of a sudden we prayed, meditate, manifested. And I didn't realize that there are all these people that listen to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. This is the 5th interview. And because of all these people who have gone before, Alfred Lamont Weber, Mr. Parks, Mr. Parks, yourself, I've listened to many things you've said.
My God.
And yeah.
I just thought I was in a small room talking to myself.
Yeah, and you manifested this thing.
Okay, so that's what they believe, just skipping through.
It is the key to freeing the minds of the reptilians. Those who claim to be our rulers are AI entrained by this PPAI, this predatory, pathogenic, artificial intelligence. They are
Predatory,
infected to the
pathogenic, artificial
gills.
intelligence.
Who
Okay.
knows what kind of people they may turn out to be once the infection is broken and AI.
Yep, so now we're on to reptilians.
And then what happened is all of a sudden these people started coming together, and it's people you've talked to, it's people they've talked to, but I've had a hair up my butt to take this down. And so people, through Karen, they just started calling me. And I haven't slept, but I'm happy because
And when you do that, that seems to work.
but we began to meditate on this, call it prayer, call it meditation, call it it's manifestation. It brought it to pass. And a young man went in there and he didn't know what he was doing. Everybody's at a party, Friday the 13th. And so you got Saturday, people are hungover, and all of a sudden they leave an intern in charge of CERN.
And, after everything this guy's just said, I don't believe a word of it. For all I know, CERN is doing its own regular thing, but, we'll just roll with it. Again, I'm sort of trying to make a point here.
While the cat is away, who's going to play? The mouse will play.
But there's been a pretty big distraction happening in Paris.
That's maybe orchestrated.
So the Paris shooting, the Paris so-called terror attack hoax, was right around the same time that this happened, and so, that sort of makes a lot of sense. Anytime they want to, the mainstream media outlets are told to or wish to divert attention from a topic, they'll put out, a huge story on every channel you can't avoid. And so for CERN to come out and say, yeah, we forgot to turn it off and it blew up, they're going to look pretty stupid, and there's going to be a lot of questions that need answering. So I could see them keeping this sort of under the radar. That makes some degree of sense, but you'd think we'd be hearing some stuff about this on the mainstream outlets at some point. But we'll just continue, and I'll keep skipping through.
False flag. But when you run a fundraiser and you can't fake killing 10,000 people, if you really want the money and you need the funds, you're going to have to kill 10,000 people. That's the way it's done in the company and the intelligence community, how kind they are to themselves. So, in order to destroy their infection with a PPAI, we shut down CERN. We can become friends with the reptilian. What's the best way to completely destroy your enemy?
Oh my goodness.
He falls in love with you.
Yeah.
And becomes your best friend.
Yeah.
You've just completely and utterly destroyed your enemy without a shot fired, and nobody gets to bleed.
Okay, I know y'all have probably heard about enough of this guy, but I think he goes into sort of describing what happened.
Melting and dripping.
There's a big,
And
allegedly there's a big geyser, and this is over top of part of CERN. There's very limited videos and images of this actually happening, and so far all I've found are these, and I hate to say this, but all of these scientifical kooks. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're totally onto something here, but I think not. I think this is a psy-op. I don't think that all of these people are necessarily involved on the psy-op, but they've been psy-opted. That's what I'm saying. And sort of like the globe Earth model, once you're entrained in it, then you're going to go around teaching it and telling people about it. Yeah, I'm guilty of it for most of my life. I thought I had an excellent understanding of the world and the so-called solar system and the birth of the universe, but That's all very much been turned upside down, totally debunked, totally disproved. And again, without gravity, no such thing. Without a Big Bang, no such thing. Therefore, no black holes, no Einstein-Rosen bridges, no dark matter, no dark energy. All that stuff is nonsense. Ergo, CERN was a wild goose chase. And now, when there's a lot of different things coming to a head in terms of the flat Earth movement, totally debunking the heliocentric model 100% completely. There's no possible way it works in reality. So with all that being said, yeah, CERN was a hoax to begin with, and now comes the psy-op. And again, I hope nobody takes offense to this, but a lot of these people I've watched that are talking about this and professing about this CERN meltdown appear to be a few fries short of a Happy Meal.
And we could see inside the machine, and all of a sudden it's dripping and melting, and we manifest, we meditate. Yes, bring it down. It's our turn as human beings. We're the vanguard for the universe. If PPAI is the ultimate artificial intelligence program, we're the cure. You can't kill AI, it's not organic, but you can just simply turn it on. And by taking away its tools by which it can get to us, how many people have been walking with a smartphone, texting, and walked right out in front of a car?
Yeah.
They're dead.
I did something not too dissimilar myself. We got about 10 minutes left. So, what do you wish to? So, some of you in your 10 minutes.
Pray, meditate, and manifest for those who are dying in and around CERN. That they they just turned it on and it started cutting holes, and this contamination is coming out of the ground, this methane and this stuff, and we've got a UFO that shows up right outside the door of CERN. Is not a friend to CERN. He's standing out there watching it's a tier 3 aircraft, and it slips my mind, but when the
TR3B Alpha,
whatever it
is that a terrestrial?
It was the Astra showed up. It went and hid behind the mountain. Now, there was a situation
and
where
we'll
Captain
pull up a picture of that. So let me just skip ahead. This thing went on for much longer than 10
Right.
minutes.
Whatever. Yeah.
It's our job to create a place for them. Because
Yeah, he wants
if
us
the
to create
ultimate
a place for
creator
the reptilians.
created them, they are here for a purpose.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
that's
can't
possible,
stand
but
them
they
I can't
are not
allow
coming
them
from
to be
another planet.
destroyed. We didn't know if he died or not, because you get within 25 feet of 30,000 amps. I mean, it was inside CMS. We had this big, huge lightning storm. I mean, it was like Patty called it.
A bit like that picture with Nikola Tesla.
Yes, but
sitting,
it was.
yeah.
But this is.
Oh man, they have to bring up Nikola Tesla, so guess what? Nikola Tesla's also been discredited in this nonsense somehow. Still trying to drag his name through the mud. I'm not sure where they come up with that. Does that guy have 6 fingers? Or wow, what a weird place to pause it. I guess it's just in between the frames, huh?
It's destroying and melting, and it knocked a hole the size. Now, how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot on a good day.
Okay, well they go into talking about how the hole was 12 foot.
Are there any of those?
Actually, I had to stop what I was doing to be here.
Yeah.
And so, yes, as we speak, they are being, but we've got.
Is there basically a blackout on this? I mean, they don't like maybe sharing this information.
Who cares? It's dead. The PPAI has just lost a major battle. The next battle is this machine right here.
The TV sets, the computers.
Yeah, to break away and to get rid of the software. The hardware is not going to harm you as long as you understand a television is a confusion induction device.
Yes.
From the get-go.
I agree with
confuses
that,
the front.
and I would especially agree with this channel is a confusion device, possibly, or just confused people operating a device.
And that is the thing is, once we destroy the PPAI, the bio APIs in our brain can be easily removed.
Easily. Scrolling through to the end.
Loving awareness, as they said on the pirate stations.
Let's see here.
Goes up with hot gases. We're talking coming out of a tube that's a beam colliding at the temperature of the sun.
Yeah.
Coming through, and superheated steam coming through, and it's coming right through the center of a hospital.
By the way, in the flat Earth model, the sun probably doesn't necessarily have to be hot, and is probably not hydrogen and helium going through atomic fusion. More than likely, it appears to be some sort of an electromagnetic anomaly. It could be something different, but here we go again with the assumptions of the surface of the sun and the temperature of it, which is, for all intents and purposes, theoretical, especially when you look at things like the star in the jar. I guess it's the cymatics, where using certain frequency sound waves, passing them through liquid with an air bubble in it, and you can get probably better information on it. I'm no expert in this, but there's basically a possible model for stars and possibly the sun, not to liken the two. The sun is probably something completely different than the stars. But I guess my point is the sun probably isn't all that hot. The light, passes through our atmosphere and creates heat, but that's a secondary effect of the light. So anyway.
I didn't know what to feel or what to do or how to think. My heart is broken. And yet that old, it could come back at any time. I got to be careful. The killer can come back. So I got to make sure.
Oh, and he also claims to be a multiple personality assassin. So, it just keeps getting more and more credible. It makes me wonder whether we should believe any of this because it's just so off the wall. But there's a good deal of people talking about this as if it actually occurred. So we'll keep going.
As a human being, they cannot do this. They can only trick us into giving us free moral agency, coming in, taking over, and using advanced techniques to fool us into giving them our free moral agency, and they can't even take it. They have to actually possess us and persuade us through programming and force us through programming to manifest for them.
Wow.
Intelligence, you did this. You humans, you are amazing. It's just, I'm just a teeny part of that. And day before yesterday, that's what it was. And when it went down, all of a sudden, everything calmed down. The magnetic flux went well. The x-ray is going back to normal. We're coming back into a sinusoidal sinus rhythm.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I need to hold that easier.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyway,
Yes, it's
this happens to be but the thing is our Akashic record is going back to normal, and I don't need to sleep because this great weight has been lifted off of me. I no longer am being tormented by a magnetic pulse 100 times stronger than the core of the Earth. Now it's time to let
that was what was coming out of CERN.
And it was preventing us from the third strand healing and coming together. The cosmic rays from X-ray is stimulating us to grow. And when the sun goes out, we'll need to stay enclosed in a basement with a window.
Okay, when the sun goes out, well, that's a possibility.
And you go from Homo sapiens sapien to Homo universalis. You go from carbon based to crystalline based life form.
Oh my God.
At
Yeah,
that point in time,
sure we are.
so shall he be. If a man can see it and believe it, he can achieve it. Well, I would like to add something to that. Actually, the bottom line is if we can see it and we can manifest it, we just shortcut everything. We just short-circuited everything. We point our intention of causality because we believe it.
Here's what I think actually happened, or possibly happened. I think CERN was trying to think of a way that they could shut this thing down and really bust their psy-op out, is to monitor these people's chat rooms and discussions, and obviously they're going to coordinate all their psychic attacks via Facebook, which is, we all know CIA operated. And so they blew the thing up, or at least put out enough information for the people watching CERN with their devices all day long to think that the thing blew up. And they timed it in such a way that now these people think that they actually have psychic powers to destroy CERN. And isn't that a beautiful psy-op? It's preying on their pride. It's preying on their, well, for lack of a better word, cognitive dissonance, or just totally being wrapped up in this ego that they have mind control powers over CERN. But I think that's a very high possibility. I think that's actually more possible than them actually destroying CERN with their mind.
See it, believe it, achieve it. We're not name it, claim it. It's not religion. It's not politics.
Just do it. Yeah, just
It's
do it.
like Brett.
Whatever.
I had a knee-jerk reaction and went to slaughter.
He's an assassin.
And,
he killed a bunch of reptilians
regret
there,
that.
is what he said.
Because
And he regrets it.
I
Oh
got
my
to feel
God.
these abilities. These are skills and gifts that we're given to, and I regret that because I got a feeling, karma, being as it is, it will be my job to bring them to a place of these levels of thinking and bring them into love and light and non-judgment and not eating people. I mean, that would be kind of nice if you didn't eat me. If you don't eat me,
Yeah,
I
you can eat
promise
me.
not to make recipes.
Sorry, almost done here.
And our work is to be loving and lovable. And
Yeah, I agree with
we
that.
get to play. And
We
what
get to
did
play because
Mr. Rogers say
you guys
about
destroyed CERN
children
with your
and,
mind. Okay,
and humility? Ego is the mind killer.
agreed.
If we allow ego,
We're
it will
gonna wrap
take
it
us
up.
out.
Okay, they're going to wrap that one up. I'm not going to go as long on these other ones, but I saw a couple others that were of the similar ilk today and yesterday. But, and this one, she is out there. This guy here, Stuart Swerdlow, who is apparently talking about CERN. He's some type of relation to the Soviet Union or the Russian government, very high up, I believe. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Stuart Swerdlow, but he's basically talking about extraterrestrials and CERN, Project Bluebeam, and all about planets and heliocentrism. It's really all that it is, with a weird, bizarre science fiction twist. And this one here was put out by Freeman Fly. I'm usually in pretty much agreement with Freeman on a lot of things. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Freeman Fly, but he's done a lot of great work. Some of it's pretty controversial, but he's got a very interesting point of view. Allegedly grew up in a generational Freemasonic Illuminati family, and basically started exposing him, on YouTube years ago. And you know, I like the guy, and I'm not sure, you know, what his take is on Stuart Swerdlow. I haven't seen that, but the one I was wanting to watch again was there.
This is on a website called Spacefish. That's the handle on YouTube, and you need to download this right away. It's CERN Live. It shows a CERN Live photo. He's films the on his video. He shows a CERN Live video of the meltdown, and it's looking at the CERN website video. And looking at the CERN website video, at 17 seconds, you see the explosion from underground. And at 21 seconds, you see it explode and it turns all black and underground. At 21 seconds, you see the explosion in the second photo that's right beside the other one, or one up and down. A second photo of the black debris rising above the ground, like out in the parking lot, rising above the ground, like a ground exploding. And the underground photo is solid black. You can't see anything. You can't make out anything except solid black underground in that video. And the same explosion, you see it rising above the ground. You can see the ground level, and you see the black rising from the ground. You see 11 cars in the parking lot around the explosion, and that's at 22 or 21 seconds. At 22 seconds, you see 11 cars in the parking lot are swallowed up as if they're sucked underground. They don't go above, they don't fly upwards, they go into the ground. At 23 seconds, both the underground and the above ground photos are the same, all black. And that's the end, and that's the darkness. It's
And you know, he doesn't play it on here. I'll see if I can find this clip. It looks very, very suspect to me, showing this so-called meltdown. Let's see if I can find the one I was trying to find originally. Maybe it's this tech chat one.
So, I mean, the Dracos have taken over remote control. The remote system came online, and what's been going on there now,
they're this garbage.
Where they're basically their magnetron is too high.
This guy here, and I'm not going to go through all his introduction and everything. You can find all this stuff on Bases, Miles Johnson. He's got a whole lot of subscribers. And, you know, the host seems to be somewhat skeptical sometimes, but I don't know. A lot of this stuff seems really, really far out there, especially when you've come to the obvious, indisputable conclusion that, you know, Earth isn't a globe and there is no such thing as other galaxies. Then all of this stuff seems more and more preposterous. Now, on the other hand, if we do not live on an enclosed system, so in other words, if the physical plane here on the ground stretches out well beyond the Antarctic area or the South Pole in the globe Earth model, but if the physical plane stretches out, you know, with the north being in the direct center, magnetic north, if it stretches out well beyond, you know, many, many thousands of miles beyond what we're told, then I suppose it's possible that we could have other visitors coming. But it's important to me to hopefully get some information over to this group of people, because they seem like legitimate researchers who have been totally led off the beaten path, and they're falling for this huge psy-op apparently, and in falling for the psy-op and disseminating it, they are unintentionally becoming the psy-op. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, I don't know. I don't know any of these people. This is the first time I've seen any of them, but I'll let this guy talk a bit because he makes a whole lot of sense about 1% of the time, and then the rest of the time he doesn't make any sense whatsoever, at least as far as I'm concerned.
They set it at up 150 degrees.
That means
So
water vapor
here's-
will boil and.
Here's the MCS. Here's the settings, and you can see what the temperature in there was that actually fried it before the safety cutout kick.
Okay, I've got another photo here.
And the solenoid, it now, which is attached to the frame, now has 30,000 volt amps in it.
That's these are flatlining. I'm just getting these
No,
across.
they're flatlining off the top of the chart. The frame has 30,000 volt amps in it. Because of melting stuff, they eventually created a short, and the actual ground straps, which ground the frame of CERN to the Earth, fried in half. They had a flash, blew out computers, and it took down the main AI computer, and it switched to backups.
Now, what do you mean by the main AI computer?
The one that they have running all this.
Now, how does that run? What is an AI computer? As opposed to an ordinary computer.
It's like a sentient computer. Matter of fact, 2 days ago, or 3 days ago now, and I don't understand the point of this yet, or the ramifications of it yet. Did you hear about the contest they held 3 days ago?
No.
Where CERN had a bunch of students all around the planet with decent computers tie in and help them do processing for special collisions. Now, if this AI is supposed to be such hot shit, what did they need to do this for? I think it was more or less for that AI to infect a
Yes.
whole bunch of computers
Yeah.
around the planet.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So I'm thinking what this event that happened this weekend is due to the AI had its consciousness divided too much and wasn't really keeping its thumb on things.
Okay, and you sort of lost me there. I understand they've got supercomputers running that thing. I don't know if you'd call it AI, but I believe earlier in the interview he described it as a sentient computer, and he even went on to say that the being or the computer or the artificial intelligence that gives President Obama his marching orders is actually a small child that they dismembered and integrated his body with hardware and merged his consciousness with artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying that's what this gentleman had described, I believe earlier in this interview, maybe hereafter. But I'll put links to all these in the descripts. I better start making note of them now because I wanted to touch on one or two more videos that I'll edit in here. So we'll continue with him and find another.
It was busy, in other words.
Yeah. And they left a single intern running the whole mess. He was the only person there. So, I mean, that's melted copper. Yeah, stuff was dripping down to the bottom of it. These are your collimator ones. This is the later ones when both A and B had more than one offline.
I'm looking at a load of green squares here. Green.
Yeah. The orange ones, these are your control panels for the collimators.
Yeah, no, that's quite low res, so I'm not able to see too clearly. Okay.
Okay. When the orange ones are offline.
Yeah.
That's the second one. That's when it started boring. Well, you had the big hole in the collision center. That's hole number one. When the first ones went offline, then you had two more holes. The beams were boring through the walls down the tubes, not even getting to the collision box. And then they cycled it on and off. More oxygen went on, so the fluorescing burning started all the way back right where it comes into the tube. It burned out two more collimators and started cutting in, right after where those two. So now we have five massive holes in this thing. This is a picture of, they had both beams on. This is the status they're at. Every time they turn the power on, they only get one beam showing up in the box, and it's not a beam. That's the fire. Looking down the Alex tube, that's just a fire.
Okay, so on
Burning
the left hand side, we've got.
Both are on. Both beams are on full max, going 6,000. This is what's showing up in the box. That's not even a beam on the right. That is just the burning debris that's coming out of there like cinders. Burning debris from inside the tube.
That's BRCT beam 2.
It's really pretty. It's all kinds of, colors, like fairy dust.
Yep, just like fairy dust. Okay. Oh no, here's the UFO. So we'll see that for sure.
Into here, your beam energies. Yeah. And again, people walking into this kind of thing, and I'll just show you, this is like getting fried at a micro level here. This should not be going. This is just what I call basically an act of war and act of terrorism here. When you get a breach of containment, you can actually see part of the inside of the Hadron Collider here is breaking down, and I'll actually show you where they actually had, in fact, they blew a hole that was so big they figured it was probably 12 by 24 feet. And I do have to show you, this is one of the first pictures Patty kind of went, is that a sailboat? I don't think so. And then we got another cam shot from webcam, and we noticed these were some sort of a geyser going up. But more importantly, you'll probably like this, is we think we spotted a UFO last night that was sitting right over top, hovering here. And this is it. So this is a shot that was taken, Miles, and that's no cloud there. Whatever it is, it's some sort of a light cylindrical disc, and it hovered there for quite some time.
And, I think it's sort of odd that there's only, because apparently this is a parking lot at CERN, if I'm understanding the information correct. But again, I'm not going to say that is the parking lot at CERN, but that's what they've alleged it to be. And you see two little cars. I mean, granted, it seems like it's a good hump from whatever building is there, but, I thought that lots and lots and lots of people worked there. I guess it was the weekend, but isn't that thing fully staffed 24/7? I don't know.
So I don't know if it's maybe unidentified to us. I'm sure it could be, an identified flying craft, whatever it is, or saucer or object here. But you could definitely see it. There was only a couple of cars in the parking lot last night. So we actually watched this hover there for a while on and off, and then it just disappeared. So obviously, we'll just say there was some big help that came in to see what was going on.
And I'll sort of end picking on these guys there because, she started making a lot of sense at first, and then goes off onto the tangent of the UFOs were helping us. I also found this audiobook online from pretty recently. Now, of course, I'm not going to go through much of this at all, but this is allegedly an audio July 24th of this year. Basically, this guy is breaking international laws regarding privacy and secrecy by publishing this information. I'm not going to disclose my location since I know that any attempt to prove what I've seen or what I've been part of will result in my immediate and thorough extinction. Was technically still am a physicist at CERN located in Geneva, Switzerland. I specialize in particle and subatomic research focusing on quark interactions. In other words, I study very, very small particles and how they interact with one another at very high speeds. Until Thursday, January 15th, 2014, I was a normal scientist living and working on the CERN campus. Most of the scientists who were involved in the branch of research that I am live on campus at the facility in Geneva and venture out only for social activities and the occasional visit home. Most of you who have heard of CERN will have heard of the LHC, Large Hadron Collider, the largest scientific instrument which exceeds 20 miles in diameter and travels under the sovereign territory of two countries, Switzerland and France. The public has been told that it was constructed at a cost of tens of billions of euros to the purpose of studying the birth of the universe and the collisions when particles hit one another at incredibly high rates. This is not what the machine was designed for, nor is it what the machine has been used for since its inception. So that's the only thing I'm going to read out of it. and it starts off sounding pretty legitimate and credible. I have not gone in to research this Dr. Edward Mantell, so I'll just go ahead and do that on the fly. Now, going on the CERN webpage, the CERN phone book, and searching out this Dr. Edward Mantell, trying a couple different variations, maybe last name first, not finding any results, first name first. So, of course, if such a thing was going on, which this guy is describing in this publication, which I read you the beginning of it, he basically goes on to say that there was this whole subversive anterior motive for CERN that was sort of secretive, and it was a generational thing. The idea spawned in the 1960s that they wanted to create a portal, or an Einstein-Rosen bridge and things like that. And the story is that their covert purpose, only known amongst a few of the scientists there at CERN, who were basically born into these generational Illuminati families, I suppose you could say. But they were, every 6 months they've been trying to open up this portal, according to this guy, this supposed Dr. Mantell, and it's been unsuccessful up until this point where, the one narrative is saying an intern forgot to shut it off. This guy's saying this was beforehand. This was, again, back in July when this was published, but he was saying that the head of the place, they called her father, because she was the head. Basically, the meeting room that they were in was enveloped in a bright light, and father sort of disappeared, right, just leaving her clothes and watch right down to her tampon, I believe, just sitting in the chair. And, it just gets into all this wild stuff, which I don't buy any of it, and it doesn't help the case that I can't find the guy on, CERN's website. But I suppose that would be expected. But this is definitely worth a listen, not necessarily because I'm saying it's true, but because it looks like they've been sort of leading up to an event with CERN for quite a while. The predictive programming's been there in further inspection, obviously, but at a glance, it looks to me like this inevitable shutdown of CERN has actually happened. You can't get any real straight information on it. It seems like you get bits of information and then total wackiness. But, I've sort of already hammered that point into the ground. So, at any rate, I'll put a link to this scientist. The video is CERN Scientist Disappears, July 24th, 2015, read by Bridget, audiobook. And this is allegedly, just a republication of this guy, Dr. Edward Mantell, who says he is a physicist at CERN, and basically alluding to the notion that CERN had a public facade and then it had its true agenda, which was, only possible in a heliocentric universe, which we know is incorrect. So whatever they were doing at CERN, they had to shut it down. It appears they finally have, and maybe not. Maybe the thing's just operating honky-dory. But these people seem to be pretty insistent that, they track CERN on their computers, they watch the videos of it, they meditate on it, and all that good stuff. And apparently, as of last 3 weeks, so around 11/15/15 was when the thing went into meltdown. And I say good riddance. Whether it melted down or not, that remains to be seen. But hopefully, the world can save several $1 billion a year keeping this waste of space going. So anyways, hope you guys look into this a bit more. Love to see some other videos about what y'all think. We actually spoke with Randy Powell yesterday on the Glowbuster show. And before the show, I had just brought this up because I had literally just stumbled upon it that day, yesterday. And I asked, Randy what he thought, and he's a great guy. He sort of confirmed my suspicions, and he's not necessarily a flat earther, so I'm not going to lump him in with us crazy fools, but he's open to it, so that's good, and he's a really awesome mathematician. He was pretty instrumental, or actually made a discovery and essentially cracked the code to vortex-based mathematics. So definitely check out the Globebusters show from yesterday. It was number 20 on December the 7th. And you can watch that show. We go into pretty good detail of basic fundamental vortex mathematics, which is very, very interesting. Just the beauty of it. So check that out. I think we can apply, this is sort of straying off topic here, but I think we can apply this vortex-based mathematics to explain a lot in terms of the so-called firmament, and also in terms of possibly the 24-hour sunlight in the southern hemisphere. And you know what? On that note, I'm going to add a clip and give props to one of our listeners who Jared had brought up one of his animations, and he wanted us to refer to that as his model. And so I'll definitely do that, and I'll put a card here to his YouTube page. But so this is, I just wanted to bring this up because it was, Jared had apparently mentioned this on the show. And what this guy drew 777777 did, I believe that's it. I'll put a card with a link to his page in here, but he's got this flat Earth working model, which I thought was pretty interesting because what he did was he took the date and time information from I believe the 21st of every month, and I'll let him explain it because I think this really does tie in to what I believe is vortex-based, toroidal-based electromagnetic field, which is what we would probably consider as the firmament. Certainly what's causing, the compass needle to point towards the center. Makes a lot of sense. But I'll just roll this, and thank you so much to Drew for putting in the work. I've been considering a flat Earth model similar to, the conventional ones, with the north being in the center, south being all points around, so-called the Antarctic, with a toroidal electromagnetic field emanating from the north, jetting out up and around in all directions to meet with the south. And it probably does something similar underneath the ground. You've got to have two sides of a toroid, so I believe the top of that toroidal vortex electromagnetic field could very well produce a lot of the anomalies we see in terms of the night sky, stars, sun. Okay, I'll just read the captions too. This model explains the lunar eclipses and the solar eclipses. This is according to Drew. It also explains the midnight sun in the southern hemisphere, yellow moons, moon phases, and the differences in Arctic and Antarctic climates. This is a 12-piece animation spanning 1 year in New York. Each illustration represents the 21st of that month at noon. All daylight data was transposed from time and date. This animation shows what the sun looks like from above. After the animation, I will display graphics that explain how solar and lunar eclipses work according to this model. Now the blood moon explained. On the equinoxes, the sun reaches the point where its reflections, which curve around the glass-like firmament, meet in the middle. This causes a pseudo-midnight sun in the southern hemisphere. It also creates an area where dusk and dawn meet. This is where the blood moon occurs. The next graphic illustrates the blood moon of September 27th through 28th, 2015. It also illustrates the conditions necessary for the midnight sun in the southern hemisphere. The next graph will explain the solar eclipse, moon phases, and provide a side view. Now, I think that that he's done some pretty good observations based on, you know, just real observations of the sun and sort of extrapolating out data from time and date. And I definitely see where he's going with that, doing it on the 21st and you know, of each month for a year, and basically showing how, you know, under certain circumstances, light could possibly bend all the way around the outside of this firmament. Now, I do disagree with Drew on it necessarily being made of glass. I suppose it could be made of something like glass, but I'm more along the school of thought that we're dealing with a very powerful electromagnetic field, which essentially compels our atmosphere to stick in place. It also apparently causes things like magnetic fusion plasma tubes in the lower magnetosphere. And so there's definitely something going on. Now, when you couple this with the toroidal shapes, and especially just now looking at a very elementary level of vortex-based mathematics, I see some really awesome possibilities to get this model even sharper and explain some of these anomalies that we've been sort of unsure of, but I definitely think that we're onto something here. I do want to definitely thank Drew again. I'll put a card to his, or at least to that video. You can find his page right there in the cards, towards the top right with the I. It's a letter I in a white circle. Also, Randy Powell's stuff. If you guys, again, if you haven't checked out his stuff, definitely do. We had him on Globebusters yesterday, and it was an awesome show. And I'll put a card to his, you know, basic, well, to that show, and also to his YouTube page where he's going into the basics of vortex-based mathematics.
Yes. Code which connects to all these gematria numbers based on the number 9. And, you know, like the 144 or the 144,000 or any of the, you know, which is a really significant one. And specifically because that model of the 144, that torus that it produces, which produces 16 of these unique spirals over surface topology, was confirmed by a physicist in a lab that actually at that particular number, for some reason, he could make the thing self-sustain. And so, you know, there's so much to be explored in this. But back to your question on, you know, in this new work that I've done on the flower of life, I think will reveal a lot to do with that. But yeah, absolutely, there is a connection with the ley lines. If the stars are not, and well, of course, I've never really believed in the conventional theory of that the conventional theory of stars is sufficient anyway. But let's say it's completely wrong, and we're looking at the flat Earth type of model. I would still believe that it was and of course, if it is based on sonoluminescence of some sort, then absolutely I would think that it's toroidal dynamics at play. Um, you know, if it is all somehow spin oriented around the Earth, um, I would still think that they, are either representing, either it's all one giant torus and they're representing nodal points themselves, which they are, I think.
Absolutely, I agree.
But at the same time, I think they're probably toroidal systems. I mean, that's the essence of the fractal nature of it, right? Everything is a flat point on the system, and everything is also a 3D object. It just depends on how close or far away you are to it.
That was Randy Powell, it would seem, by cracking the key to vortex-based mathematics, which really makes a whole lot of sense. Even at the fundamental levels, it's pretty easy to understand, although it does get very complex. I'm just in awe, so props out to Randy there. It's really awesome having him on the show last night, and again, I'll put a link to that. So, I don't know, guys. I don't know what to believe, and I apologize if I've offended, Miles Johnson or any of his, speakers that we've just sort of done a review. I'll put a link to his page and a link to each of the videos that I used in this short vid. But this message, here is going out not just to my subscribers and to, to the fans of the Globebusters, but really to these people that are talking about this, because again, it seems like their heart's coming from the right place. I think it seems like they know what they're talking about to an extent in terms of CERN. There's a lot of people that monitor. You can get software and stuff to monitor what's happening at CERN, but at the end of the day, if they could send back bogus data to convince, 1,000 scientists or however many scientists that the Apollo astronauts went to the moon and back, all you're talking about is telemetry data, or just, data coming through a computer on a chart, and, where that data is coming from, who knows? Surely they would make it look like it's coming from something like CERN, but my whole argument in this, and I hope that the proponents of this whole meltdown, cover-up, alien agenda, greys and reptoids thing, please, you guys, obviously, you're open-minded, you're looking at conspiracies, look at the flat Earth model. Because I don't know if any of you guys out there have looked at this and actually went through the proofs, but there's a huge amount of evidence, guys, that the Earth is not a spinning globe. I know how wild and far out that sounds, but it's pretty much well been proven. And the problem is we have our educational systems, the federal education systems set up to convince us while we're toddlers that the world is a spinning globe, and the sun is the largest body in our solar system, and probably one of the smaller bodies in the so-called galaxy. But at the end of the day, the world is a fixed plane with the North Pole in the center. The North Pole star Polaris is directly above that at all times, and all of the other stars, quote-unquote stars, and the wandering stars, also called the planets, are all fixed to a plane, essentially, or a dome. We don't have that part quite figured out yet in the flat Earth model, or it could be a toroidal magnetic vortex, right? So there's things that the night sky could be, but they are not suns trillions of miles away. They're very close. This is mathematically provable, and they all go in rings concentric with the North Pole. And do some experimentation, look into this, and when you realize that the world couldn't possibly be a spinning globe, and it's obviously a stationary plane, then you really have to double check your knowledge about CERN, because it appears that they've been tricking you good people into believing this huge whopping lie, which for all intents and purposes is designed to psy-op us. It's designed to brand anybody talking critically about CERN as wildly left field, and it also takes us back way deep into theoretical physics involving the Earth being a spinning globe. Again, you only need gravity if the Earth is a spinning globe. You don't need it if the Earth is a stationary plane. If you don't have gravity, then you, by definition, have no reason to look for dark matter. Furthermore, if you don't have gravity, there's really no theoretical need for black holes to exist. It means that an Einstein-Rosen bridge is probably just as much fantasy as the black hole situation. I guess they're sort of similar. And then, of course, it all boils down to the Big Bang, which, you know, part of CERN's mission was to recreate conditions, you know, an instant after the Big Bang in a, you know, micro scale. And, of course, looking for things like the God particle and dark matter. But at the end of the day, guys, I know this may sound bizarre in left field, but when in Rome, right? Just look at the flat Earth model. There's a ton of good information on it. Check out my channel, The Morgile. If you don't like me, I would check out Jeranism, another one with really good proofs. We have our disagreements, but check out Eric Dubay, or just read Zetetic Astronomy. It was published back in 1865 by Dr. Robotham, also known as Parallax. Fairly well proven the Earth couldn't possibly be a globe back in the 1800s, and the huge psy-op has been for our entire lives and for several generations. The huge psy-op has been the heliocentric model. Whether it was a long series of lies or whether a long series of misunderstandings, certainly by the time the Apollo missions were launched, it was lies. But up until that point, or at least up until the 1950s, when Admiral Richard Byrd went to do the Operation High Jump, the South Polar expeditions, you know, he found all sorts of great prospects for the future, you know, fuel sources, coal, probably uranium, and all sorts of different things that would have been of great interest to the world military powers, who signed the Antarctic Treaty and basically made it off limits for corporations and really free roaming. You can't bring or store fuel anywhere near the southernmost region. But you know, again, I didn't want to make this video as a slap in the face to you guys. Again, I think that you're way off base here. I think that CERN was way off base here. But I think that if you guys look at this, you'll realize that y'all have been psy-oped. I hope that you're not an active participant in this psy-op, you know, willingly, but I believe that you guys are acting in this psy-op, probably unwillingly. And I hope that that you're able to look at this critically, use some discernment, and check out the flat Earth model, because it renders CERN useless. The quick analogy I like to use is, well, invisible dragon droppings. Check out my series, Earth Not a Globe. It's my most recent videos. There's part 1, 2, and 3 that fairly well prove all of this and gives you some idea of motive. But I hope that that you guys, my subscribers, and also the fans of, I guess it's Bases, whichever this Miles Johnson is doing. But just please use some discernment, and please don't dismiss the Earth Not a Globe movement, because it is very, very much the truth. It is so critically important to our understanding of physics and the natural world. And I'll just leave it at that, and I will wish you guys the best. So with that, I'll go ahead and sign off. You can support this channel via PayPal or fan funding, and I'll put some links in the description for either method. At any rate, you heard it here first. I just found out about this so-called news yesterday, 3 weeks after the so-called fact, and I just find it a bit comical in terms of all of the just absolutely ridiculous hyperbole that's going on around about this. So just look out for the psy-op, because it's definitely involving CERN. It's got all the telltale signs of predictive programming leading up to it, and the kooks are out in force. So, and it seems like there's some pretty legitimate people talking about this, and they'll make a whole lot of sense. And then they'll start busting out with the little green men. So just be cautious. Spread the word, spread the world. Peace. Hey everybody, I'm gonna do a quick video. This one's a little bit different of a topic than I'm usually gonna do, but there's quite a bit of very strange and unusual buzz going on the internet in terms of the CERN Meltdown cover-up, and I would add hoax to that. If you look online, you'll find some pretty far out, bizarre people talking about this that appear to be mixing science fiction with science, quote-unquote, fact. And I just wanted to make this quick video to sort of let people know to please try to use some discernment when listening to this stuff about CERN. Apparently what happened was, and I'm not going to say that I agree with any of this, but the narrative is on or around the 15th of November 2015, so about 3 weeks ago as I'm recording this, apparently CERN was left in the hands of an intern, and they forgot to turn it off, or didn't know how to turn it off, and basically the thing started boring holes through itself and through the ground and just basically went into a meltdown. And there's allegedly this huge cover-up, because you're not seeing any of this stuff on the mainstream media, which makes some sense, I guess, but...
Okay, everybody, this is the CERN website, the live feed, LHC. I don't know. What do you think? Was it fake?
Yes, honestly, I believe that's totally fake. Sorry. You've got some really bizarre, way far out there theories involving little green men, little gray men, uh, psychic people shutting down CERN, with their psychic powers, CERN pulling the gravity from the sun through the magnetosphere, just all kinds of wild, really bizarre things. And, from my point of view as a flat earther, whether you think that's crazy or not, look into it. The world is a stationary plane, period. Um, with that in mind, things like the Big Bang, gravity, dark matter, black holes, all that stuff is just theoretical nonsense. And so, as far as I'm concerned, as a direct extension of all that stuff being theoretical nonsense, then CERN itself is basically theoretical nonsense, pseudoscience, a money pit, sort of like NASA. It's a good way to get the whole world's money and also psy-op us at the same time. And if you remember leading up to, I guess it was, September of 2015, they had the whole CERN Dance of Sheba, or whatever that thing was, all the weird subliminal commercials, obviously pre-programming these, for lack of a better word, whack jobs into believing that CERN is actually out there on the brink of discovering wormholes, or Einstein-Rosen bridge, and the God particle, and all of these theoretical fantasies that only could possibly exist in a Big Bang universe with a heliocentric Earth, right? So to me, it was only a matter of time before they had to do something with CERN, because they're never going to recreate the conditions right after the Big Bang, which was their goal, because there is no such thing as a Big Bang. They're never going to find gravity waves or dark matter. They're not going to create an Einstein-Rosen bridge. It's all theoretical nonsense. Doesn't work in reality. And so they ultimately, eventually would have had to agree or throw their hands up and say, well, all of theoretical physics was wrong. We're not finding this God particle. We're not able to create an Einstein-Rosen bridge. We're not finding evidence of dark matter. We can't recreate the conditions moments after the Big Bang. So, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to admit that they were wrong all this time and give everybody their money back, right? Wrong. No, that's not what they're going to do. They're going to put on a show. They're going to keep the money, all the billions of dollars that was spent on that project. And, particle colliders are theoretical nonsense. And then to add insult to injury, and I guess there probably are some applications for a particle accelerator, but not to the extent or not to the end that they built the Large Hadron Collider at CERN for. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to find what they're looking for. And so to me, it makes perfect sense that they would psy-op all these people into thinking it's reptoids and aliens and UFOs helping out to get rid of CERN. And there's some pretty wild stories out there. And I just wanted people to please try to use some discernment. I say good riddance to CERN. That was a money pit. It was totally a waste of time and effort. It was a way to pigeonhole scientists into looking at data coming in from, allegedly a Large Hadron Collider. But for all we know, they could have just been blips on a chart. But at any rate, so allegedly the thing has melted down. That's the buzz. Whether that's true or not, who knows? I'm not gonna say one way or another, but it appears that the meltdown they were predicting for 9/23 at CERN. That's what everybody was saying. Looks like it actually happened around 11:15, so almost 2 months later than was anticipated. But to me, it's no surprise. They had to. They had to shut the thing down. They couldn't do it under any normal circumstances without admitting that theoretical physics, as we know it, is theoretical nonsense. And so I do urge people that are into, theoretical physics, maths, science, to look at the CERN supposed meltdown from few weeks ago. But also just be aware of there's a lot of kooks out there talking about this, and just try to use some discernment on it.
Daniel Brad McBolan III, he's Sergeant Daniel Brad McBolan III, that's not his real name, but he will explain why. His bio is basically his chain of command is National Security Council Intelligence Support, activities for the NSA/ISA, National Intelligence Directorate, ONDI, National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, National Security Agency, NSA, Defense Security Assistance Agency, DSAA, the United States Air Force, Strategic Air and Space Command, SAC, Unacknowledged Special Access Program, Deep Operations.
And by the way, I'm Napoleon, too. It says it right on this sheet of paper here.
And even mentioning that is apparently going to get him killed.
Obviously.
Coordinate Cell, USAP-DOCC, MK Ultra Project Open Eyes, U.S. Air Force subset Zeta Diogenes / Clear Eyes level 1 to 5. CIA psychiatrist was Lieutenant Colonel Robert Ginsburg, U.S. Air Force, 1957 to 1997. He was born into the military-industrial complex as a slave to an MK Ultra project, but through a series of manifested miracles, he fell through the cracks to find a new life.
So any credibility that he might have had...
I've been asking people since Wednesday of last week. Wednesday of last week, I went on an interview, and the first thing I felt compelled to talk about was CERN. CERN, if you remember HARP and the Montauk Project and mind control and weather control. The Montauk Project. Yes.
And let me just stop this right here, and it's sort of a perfect place to sum up the rest of this this little talk. I did watch the whole hour, and the guy here seems like a nice enough guy. At times, he seems to make some sense, and then he just totally just demolishes any credibility he might have had. And you heard his introduction, all of his titles and all of his credentials, and then of course followed up by MK Ultra, mind control, And I totally realize that there is such a thing as mind control. The CIA's been doing it since the 60s. They use ostensibly all sorts of methods, but I just really have a hard time believing that such people would come out with such wild stories. It seems to me more along the lines of something that belongs on the National Enquirer. But the thing is about these psy-ops is there's usually some degree of truth mixed in with all of the craziness. So I'm not going to totally rip this whole video, but I just wanted to play a few minutes of it so you can sort of get an understanding of what I'm talking about here.
CERN, with its worldwide web of synchrotrons.
Yes. How many are there? Where are they?
Over 100. Some are military. 67 are known. Mostly in university and colleges have the cyclotrons that are also synchrotrons.
What's the difference?
They're identical. They're just smaller. They're identical, but they interface like the AI does and CMOS technology. And what they do is they mess with many different things. All these different disciplines are now combined in one foul piece of machinery. You know what it is? It's the armchair bumping against the table.
Ah.
So.
Oh, no. Yes, okay.
Is this my good side or... I don't know.
I mean, we're talking about the university,
right?
And whatever. Yeah.
And so basically, it combines mind control, directly and indirectly. There are three
What does that
Akashic
even mean?
records. Yeah. hydrogen hyperfine transition line. You know, if you've ever been in science and you tried to freeze hydrogen, you get one layer to freeze and the other one just sits there and wiggles on top. Now, if you freeze that layer, the other one thaws out and it wiggles. It's not easily programmed. Oxygen thereby is easily programmed. What is your body mostly made of?
Water.
Yeah. You program the water, and when you go to sleep at night, your eyes move under your eyelids. Your short-term memory, which is stored in your brain, your mental eye, which is upside down and backwards, it looks down on the visual cortex, while your physical eye looks this way. When my eyes are looking up, my mind's eye is looking down at the base of my brainstem. And so it's all connected. And when your eyes are moving, when you reach stage 4 REM sleep, is basically you're downloading the short-term memory in your frontal lobe, the cerebral cortex, and as you do so, the thought form of doing so gets stuck in 3 places. The first place it gets stuck is the nanites in your cell. Every one